Hello, everyone. Welcome to the SafeHouse, brought to you by the SafeHouse Initiative. I'm Jeff Edwards, co-chair of the SafeHouse Initiative, and your host for today's podcast. A few episodes ago, Alex Green of the Redwood Project discussed the need for public and private sectors to join forces and create an extremely and efficient virtual enterprise to better protect our country. Essentially, the concept of a federal cyber enterprise. With that as our frame of reference, our next two episodes will be an up-close and personal discussion with two gentlemen, Luke Tenery and Darren Hartvigsson, that have lived and breathed that public-private integration. Luke came up through the private sector, while Darren successfully built his career in the Air Force until leaving his threat hunter position at the Office of Special Investigations and joined Luke at StoneTurn. Over the past several years, they have gained valuable insights by leveraging their very different backgrounds. Their journey is one we can all learn and benefit from. Today's episode, Luke Tenery will share his journey, thoughts, and insights as it pertains to the federal cyber enterprise concept. Luke, welcome to the Safe House.
It's an honor to be here.
We're really glad to have you. Kind of talk about your journey to how you got to where you are today.
I was real fortunate. I went to a small school in Nashville called Lipscomb University, and I was fortunate. I found a guy that had interned for a small business in Nashville. Heard that he had been an intern. He was part of the computer science program, like I was at this small school, and I pretty much annoyed the guy until he offered me a similar opportunity to intern for this small company called System X, and somewhere in the summer of 2001, they were acquired by a larger firm called Kroll. Kroll is sort of a largely known investigations and risk management firm. Started doing things as part of their investigations in the digital forensics realm, or at that point in time, it was called high tech investigations. I was brought into Kroll's national consulting practice around that same time. Enron had gone or was going bankrupt, and Kroll, through its its turnaround and restructuring group, needed IT resources to kind of do some of the data management in the restructuring and for the litigation support to service the creditors. But they saw the writing on the wall with security. That evolved. I was offered a role in Kroll's Chicago office. That's really where kind of my career and good fortune took off. Kroll was investing a lot in its high tech investigations and digital forensics. I was riding that wave, and while I was doing all this traveling, self-studying for things like the CISSP, so kind of keeping knowledge going in the network security realm. And then circa about 2008 ish, maybe a little before, maybe a little after, we started seeing data breach law mature, and that really drove some growth in the cybersecurity realm and professional services in the litigation support, disputes, and risk space. And I was fortunate enough to kind of be advancing my career from a team management leadership standpoint. Meanwhile, nation state activity was on the rise, so enterprises were trying to figure out how to catch and thwart, mitigate APT. And I worked for some great leaders out of the bureau that taught me a lot about how to detect some of those indicators and identify those indicators of compromise and mitigate them. And that's really kind of was a huge turning point, I think, in the industry because we had all this new influx of technology to solve those problems. And from there, I had a new opportunity, more entrepreneurial, to move to Ankara, and that was a great platform. I had the good fortune to somewhat found or co-found the cybersecurity practice for Ankara in circa 2016 timeframe. Almost 4.5 years ago, I went to StoneTurn with an even more kind of entrepreneurial bent to it.
Along the way, you met a gentleman, Darren Hartvigsson, who came from the Air Force, and it was about a time when you were looking into expanding your practices, a stronger relationship with maybe leveraging someone from the public sector.
Circa 2008, 2009 period, there were two significant market leaders that came into Kroll that had a huge influence and impact on me. One gentleman was former DOJ, a guy named Mike DeBose, and then another was Tim Ryan from the FBI. And at the time, Tim Ryan had led the what was the largest cyber and computer forensics crime labs in the country and in the bureau at that point in New Jersey. And he came in and he just had a wealth of knowledge and experience and leadership from that role. And one of the things I learned from it, I was fortunate enough to kind of grow. I was a little bit kind of counter to the industry in the sense that most people were succeeding more quickly up sort of the ladder, if you will, that had law enforcement backgrounds first, and then kind of technology alongside that or complementary to that. And I was sort of a little bit different in that I had kind of followed a pure technology and client service path first. But anyway, Tim took an interest in me. He was a great mentor, offered me opportunities and guidance in terms of my growth. And one of the things I learned from him through that time was that we really kind of constantly needed to update our fleet in terms of bringing in new subject matter expertise, diverse subject matter expertise.
Hmm.
And he brought in one or two key leaders that had essentially front lines visibility into different aspects of the cyber threat landscape.
Hmm.
And then he had the foresight to leverage that with like unique market messaging and capabilities to kind of make us a more efficient and differentiated practice area. And so I kind of took that lesson was, as in building a team, we kind of had to always be thinking about our market relevance and kind of staying on the edge where we could. And we reached out to an admiral who was advising us at the time named Paul Becker. And we were looking for, front lines talent like I was coached upon.
Hmm.
And long story short, I was introduced. Me and a couple of my partners were introduced to a guy named Darren Hartfordson, who, much like some other kind of market cycles, he came from Air Force OSI and that aspect of law enforcement and certain portions of national security. And he was doing some interesting things in what we generally call threat pursuit. And from there, it was sort of a match made in heaven in terms of our growth, his appetite to come on board as he was wrapping up his law enforcement career.
Yeah, so it really grew out of you needed to keep the fleet fresh is where I like that term. Okay, we need fresh fleet, and that's where you met Darren, and his background sounds very interesting. Threat pursuit, etc. How did that change how you started to perceive going about your job and how you could, how did that change you?
One of the things that I always latched onto with some of my former law enforcement or former service member colleagues is just this distinct, um, desire and value for the mission and service to succeed.
Yeah.
And in addition to kind of taking that threat pursuit um, capability to market, we also wanted to have a different mindset and cultural expression, if you will, in the
Mm.
marketplace from a mission standpoint. And one of the other kind of criteria, particularly when we were interviewing Darren, was it wasn't just that anybody could come in that had this knowledge of how to, pursue threats like he did, but there was a cultural, you know, um, requirement that we were looking for, and he inspired me in the sense that he was all about building something and serving a missional set of values in that
Mm.
sense, which
Mm.
further inspired me alongside kind of this set of strategic cultural imperatives that although that went all the way up to our investor at the time. And so we kind of had a unique convergence there um, in terms of his values, and those ended up and continued to influence and inspire me to kind of go beyond just delivering on strategic value in the marketplace, which is obviously important, but how we go about doing that, serving right by our clients, our country, and so forth. We take those things seriously and ensure that we're aligned with those values as well.
Since you and Darren met, have you brought in more of the fleet upgrade or refresh from the public sector since then?
Yeah, we have. We've been fortunate. I mean, it's kind of been a diversified strategy, I guess you could say too, Jeff.
Uh-huh.
It has included certain people from law enforcement or otherwise. Part of the opportunity that's we're at StoneTurn is the ability to kind of take small specialty teams to start and carve out a space of unique value in the market, and we've done that here, um, which has been a great ride. But part of I would say the way the market is moving or has been moving over the last couple of years is some of the national security work alongside of kind of what we have called threat pursuit has
Yeah.
really differentiated us. We work with firms that are heavy in the uh, taking investment from foreign entities, and the U.S. government has formed this. And I'm going kind of down one example path, but the Committee for Foreign Investment in the United States is um, an active entity that does some level of inquiry and oversight to firms that take investment from foreign entities, and it's been going on for some number of decades, but it's kind of taken heightened
Yeah.
um, perspective around foreign nation states like China and others potentially making acquisitions or investments and influence on firms for national security benefit to them. And so this government entity uh, has some level of regulatory influence on firms that need to be compliant with that,
Yeah.
and or other areas over the last year or two. We've seen even CISA, CISA have some level of kind of transactional oversight for U.S. citizens' data by foreign companies like that are maybe Chinese owned.
Hmm.
Kind of some of the TikTok governmental oversight. It would be a good example of of that type of regulatory oversight. But we even saw last week the DOJ mentioned a bulk data processing sort of regulation that does tap on into aspects of national security consideration too. So we found ourselves kind of in a nice and unique spot where
Yeah.
our specialty work built upon some of the other national security overlap that we've had over the years, and continue to build out team members. We've been fortunate enough. We brought on I work for a partner actively who has led some of the largest CFIUS enforcement engagements, was formerly on the committee. But then also we brought on team members formerly FBI or other three-letter agencies in the national security realm. And that's been a really nice
Yeah.
convergence differentiator for us in the cyber community.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess what I'm hearing from you, Luke, is that this is a necessary evolution for commercial entities to have, uh, ex FBI, ex, Air Force threat hunters, things of that nature in their organization because of the integral nature or integrated nature um, that our national security and our businesses are a part of that supply chain at some point. It's so interrelated that you almost have to have that marriage of public and private sectors in a commercial entity.
That's definitely the vision, Jeff. I think we oftentimes in the U.S. many people take it for granted for how, um, and there's reasons to really lean into this, obviously, but our kind of more free and open kind of market, and even just down to how open our access to the internet is speaks to just the openness that we have
Yes.
and
Yeah.
reliance on private enterprise for much of our what is critical infrastructure, and to really protect that infrastructure, it has to take public and private partnership,
Yeah.
um, vendors who understand that connective tissue between the two. Um, and many organizations don't appreciate the sensitivity of either the types of data that they have or services and infrastructure that they support can end up being a national security consideration or part of the broader supply chain of critical
Mm.
infrastructure or national security considerations. And I think that's why we've kind of continued to see this expansion of guidance and concern around some of these elements, and particularly in the government supply chain of technology, information, and other critical infrastructure services.
Yeah, it's you provided clarity on something that it seems so obvious now that you've pointed it out. But this whole it's necessary that we do have this collaborative effort, this mindset, and take the best and the brightest, from both commercial and from public service servants, and mesh them together to create a whole and to really go into the future, which is going to become even more integrated and dependent upon each other.
Yeah, absolutely. We see that continuing to grow. I do think and there's obviously a lot of change going on, and
Yeah.
this is sort of as apolitical a statement as I can sort of make, um, as a centrist guy. But in essence, we're in a pretty critical time,
Yes.
um, from a global economic standpoint, and that we've just by virtue of where we sit, we see a lot of that playing out in terms of cyber impacts to organizations, whether it be threat actors trying to maintain, you know, visibility um, in comms and technology and data near real time as kind of global economic issues play out,
Hmm.
or perhaps even aspects of, I don't want to sensationalize it, but literally aspects of warfare that are hybrid to technology and other kind of more kinetic
Yep.
dynamic. But increasingly we see the kind of this hybrid of issues that even also include human elements,
Mm.
and the landscape's changing too, in terms of some of the anti-globalization dynamics are playing themselves out, and organizations, I think, haven't fully adjusted yet
Yeah.
to that reality in terms of even how they send their executives cross border for what global trade and services exchanges and so forth are still happening, or investment even. But there is, we, as an example, we've seen a significant uptick in executive protection or
Yep.
issues concerning the security of information that's going cross border, because you can be sure that nation states are treating cross border even data transfer much differently now as opposed to how they did even 2 years ago.
Yeah, no, it's I really appreciate your insights and sharing all that with us. And the one thing I always like to ask our guests are, you know, if there's one thing that our audience could do today, what would that one thing be?
One is to define reality, and then the second is um, to be the agent to the next stage of wherever that organization needs to go.
Yeah.
And I think we get caught in this mindset, particularly with cyber, is that particularly like from an assessment mindset, and we have these massive organizations and enterprises operating in sort of a point in time to point in time approach of assessments, and
Yeah.
whatnot. But really, it kind of takes some kind of constant element of those things are all important. We have to, audit, and those things are ultimately healthy things. But I do think there's a real time element to what we do, and organizations that can better adapt to like kind of call it a team of teams approach, or more just in time, or um, more adaptive approaches to cybersecurity. I think the better the better our infrastructure will be, as it becomes more pliable like that.
Yeah. So the leaders need to define a clear, reality and then lead to lead through that.
100%.
Really appreciate you joining us on the Safe House, and you are welcome back anytime. You're going to help a lot of people with your insights, especially with the market the way it is today, with a lot of public sector talent looking to find a new home. And I think that this will help guide some.
It's been a pleasure, Jeff. Thanks for the opportunity and maintaining this platform here as it evolves. It's doing a lot of good, so we appreciate it, and thank you.
Thank you so much. Join us next week as we continue the discussion with Darren Hartwigson. You definitely don't want to miss the threat hunting discussion, plus all the other insights Darren has to share. For more information about the SafeHouse initiative, please use your mobile device to scan the QR code on the screen, or send us an email at info@safehouseinitiative.org, or visit us on our website, safehouseinitiative.org. We look forward to hearing from you.